In the pre-dawn darkness of a Chicago winter morning, while most of the city still slept, a young man named Marcus Bailey huddled against the cold brick wall outside the United Center. His worn Chicago Bulls jacket, a prized possession from better days, offered little protection against the biting wind. He had been there since midnight, hoping to be first in line for the limited number of standby tickets that would go on sale that morning. What Marcus didn't know was that this ordinary Tuesday would become a day that would change not just his life, but the lives of countless others. Sometimes, the most extraordinary stories begin in the quietest moments, when hope seems as distant as the stars fading in the morning sky. Marcus had grown up in Chicago's South Side, raised by his grandmother, Sarah Morgan, who had taught him about perseverance and dignity even in the hardest times. She had passed away 6 months ago, leaving Marcus to navigate a world that seemed increasingly hostile to young men with empty pockets and big dreams. The temperature had dropped to near freezing, and Marcus's fingers had long since gone numb. He had been laid off from his job at the local grocery store 2 weeks earlier, and this game ticket, if he could get one, would probably mean skipping a few meals. But basketball wasn't just a game for Marcus, it was a connection to his grandmother, who had watched every Bulls game with him since he was a child. As the first hints of dawn began to color the sky, Marcus noticed he wasn't alone anymore. A few other early birds had started to gather, forming a small line behind him. Among them was Christopher Watson, a middle-aged man who struck up a conversation, sharing his own coffee thermos with Marcus. "You must really love basketball," Christopher observed, noting Marcus's shivering form. Marcus managed a smile, his teeth chattering slightly. "My grandmother and I never missed a game on TV. This would have been her first time seeing them live." His voice caught slightly. "She always said Michael Jordan taught her that impossible things happen every day." What neither of them realized was that at that very moment, Michael Jordan was already at the United Center, having arrived unusually early for his pre-game routine. He had been dealing with his own thoughts lately, questioning his impact beyond the court, beyond the championships and accolades. Jordan's security team had alerted him to the small group gathering outside, nothing unusual for game day. But something made him pause when they mentioned the young man who had been there since midnight. Perhaps it was the memory of his own father, or maybe it was just one of those moments when the universe conspires to bring the right people together at the right time. As the sun began to rise in earnest, Marcus had started to drift off, exhaustion finally overwhelming his determination to stay awake. His head nodded forward, and the coffee cup Christopher had given him slipped from his grasp, spilling onto the concrete. That's when it happened. A figure emerged from the player's entrance, someone Marcus would have recognized instantly had he been awake. Michael Jordan, dressed in casual workout gear, stood there observing the scene. The few other people in line fell silent, too stunned to speak. Christopher Watson watched as Jordan approached the sleeping young man, his presence commanding yet somehow gentle. The security team moved to intervene, but Jordan waved them off with a simple gesture. "How long has he been here?" Jordan asked Christopher quietly. "Since midnight, sir," Christopher replied, still processing the surreal moment. "He was talking about his grandmother earlier. They used to watch all your games together. She passed away recently." Something in Jordan's expression shifted, a flash of recognition or perhaps remembrance. He knew something about loss, about the ways grief can shape a person's determination. He studied Marcus's worn Bulls jacket, noting the careful way it had been maintained despite its age. Jordan reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, making a quick call. "Hey, it's MJ. Listen, I need you to do something for me." The conversation was brief but purposeful. What happened next would be shared thousands of times on social media, but none of the clips could quite capture the full humanity of the moment. Jordan gently tapped Marcus's shoulder, watching as the young man startled awake, his eyes widening in disbelief as recognition dawned. "I hear you've been waiting a while," Jordan said, his voice carrying that familiar mixture of authority and warmth that had inspired millions. "Your grandmother, she was a fan?" Marcus could barely form words, but he managed to nod. "She believed in impossible things," he finally managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. Jordan smiled, a genuine expression that reached his eyes. "Smart woman. Listen, I've got something for you," But first, you look like you could use some breakfast. What do you say we talk about your grandmother inside?" The other people in line watched in amazement as Michael Jordan himself escorted Marcus through the players' entrance, but what they didn't see was even more remarkable. Over the next hour, in the arena's private dining area, Marcus shared stories about his grandmother with the basketball legend who had helped shape both their lives. Jordan listened intently as Marcus described how Sarah Morgan had worked 2 jobs to raise him, how she had used basketball as a way to teach him about life, perseverance, and dignity. He told Jordan about her final days, how she had made him promise to never stop believing in impossible things. "Your grandmother was right about impossible things," Jordan said, reaching into his jacket. "That's why I want you to have these." He pulled out an envelope containing not just tickets to that night's game, but season passes for the entire year. But that wasn't all. "I made some calls," Jordan continued. "There's a position opening up in our community outreach program. It's entry-level, but it's a solid start. Sometimes all people need is a chance to prove themselves." Marcus sat there, overwhelmed by the sudden turn his life had taken. "I don't know what to say," he managed finally. "Say you'll make your grandmother proud," Jordan replied. "And maybe someday, when you see someone else sleeping outside in the cold, chasing their own impossible dream, you'll remember this morning." The story might have ended there, but it was just beginning. What neither of them knew was that Christopher Watson, the man who had shared his coffee with Marcus, was a local journalist. With Jordan's permission, he would share this story, not to highlight the celebrity's generosity, but to illuminate the chain of kindness that can begin with a simple cup of shared coffee. The impact rippled outward. Other NBA teams began implementing similar community outreach programs. Local businesses started offering job training opportunities to young people in need. And Marcus? He took that entry-level position and turned it into a mission, creating a mentorship program for young people who, like him, needed someone to believe in their impossible dreams. But perhaps the most touching moment came several months later, when Marcus organized a special viewing party for local youth at the United Center. As the kids filed in, wide-eyed and excited, they passed by a newly installed plaque that read, "In memory of Sarah Morgan, who taught us that impossible things happen every day." Jordan himself attended that event, not as a basketball legend, but as someone who understood that the greatest achievements in life often have nothing to do with what happens on the court. He watched as Marcus shared his story with the young attendees, teaching them the same lesson his grandmother had taught him, that kindness, like a basketball, can be passed forward. Let us know in the comments if you've ever experienced a moment of kindness that changed your life's direction. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us how a single act of compassion can create endless ripples of change. Remember to like and subscribe to hear more stories about moments that remind us of our shared humanity and the extraordinary things that can happen on ordinary days. In our next chapter, we'll explore how Marcus's story inspired a movement of kindness that spread far beyond the walls of the United Center, touching lives in ways that even Jordan himself never expected. The story of Michael Jordan's encounter with Marcus Bailey outside the United Center could have remained just another heartwarming moment in sports history. Instead, it became the catalyst for a movement that would transform countless lives across Chicago and beyond. The morning after that fateful encounter, Christopher Watson's article went viral. But it wasn't just the headline-grabbing moment of a basketball legend's kindness that captured people's attention. It was the smaller details. The shared thermos of coffee between strangers, Marcus's worn but carefully maintained Bulls jacket, and the memory of a grandmother who believed in impossible things. Rachel Martinez, a local business owner who had grown up in the same South Side neighborhood as Marcus, read the article during her morning commute. She remembered Sarah Morgan, having bought groceries at the store where she worked for years. The story struck a chord, reminding her of her own struggles and the people who had given her chances when she needed them most. That same morning, Rachel walked into her successful coffee shop chain's corporate office and called an emergency meeting with her management team. "We're going to do something different," she announced. "We're going to start giving people their impossible moments." Within weeks, Rachel's coffee shops began a program called the Morgan Initiative, offering job training and employment opportunities to young people facing similar circumstances to Marcus. But she didn't stop there. She reached out to other local business owners, sharing her vision of creating a network of support for Chicago's youth. Meanwhile, Marcus was throwing himself into his new role at the Bulls community outreach program. His first project was organizing a series of midnight basketball tournaments, but with a twist. Between games, participants could connect with job counselors, education advisors, and mentors from various professional fields. Michael Jordan himself made regular appearances at these events, not just as a celebrity guest, but as an active participant in the program's development. He saw in Marcus something that reminded him of his own journey, the understanding that success isn't just about individual achievement, but about lifting others as you climb. One particular night stands out in the program's early days. Jennifer Woods, a single mother working 3 jobs to support her teenage son, Thomas, brought him to one of the midnight tournaments. Thomas had been struggling in school, his dreams of college seemingly slipping away with each passing semester. That night, Thomas played in a team captained by Marcus. During breaks, Marcus shared his story, not just about meeting Jordan, but about his grandmother's wisdom and the importance of perseverance. Something clicked for Thomas. He wasn't just hearing about success, he was seeing it in action through Marcus's example. Jordan, who had quietly observed this interaction, approached Jennifer afterward. "Your son's got game," he said, "but more importantly, he's got heart. We've got a scholarship program starting up. Would he be interested?" The scholarship program Jordan mentioned was just the beginning. Working with Marcus and a team of dedicated educators, they developed the Impossible Dreams Initiative, providing not just financial support for education, but comprehensive mentoring and career guidance. The impact of these programs began to show in unexpected ways. Local police reported a significant drop in youth-related incidents during tournament nights. School attendance improved among program participants. But perhaps more importantly, a sense of hope began to spread through communities that had long felt forgotten. Kevin Davis, a veteran Chicago police officer, noticed the change during his nightly patrols. "It's not just about keeping kids off the streets," he observed. "It's about showing them that their community believes in them, that their dreams matter." The program's success caught the attention of other NBA teams. The Milwaukee Bucks were the first to reach out, sending representatives to learn from Marcus and the Chicago team. Soon, similar initiatives began sprouting up in cities across the country. But the most powerful stories were the personal ones. Like that of Michelle Turner, a teenager who had been sleeping in her car while finishing high school. After attending one of the midnight tournaments, she connected with Rachel Martinez's job training program. Today, she manages one of Rachel's most successful coffee shops and mentors other young people facing similar challenges. Sarah Morgan's influence continued to ripple outward in unexpected ways. Marcus, remembering his grandmother's love of storytelling, started a weekly gathering where program participants could share their own stories of struggle and triumph. These sessions, originally held in a small room at the United Center, grew so popular they had to be moved to larger venues. Jordan made it a point to attend these storytelling sessions whenever he could. "In basketball, we celebrate the biggest moments, the game-winning shots, the championship victories," he said during one gathering. "But sometimes the most important moments are the quiet ones, like a grandmother teaching her grandson to believe in impossible things." The program's impact extended beyond Chicago's youth. Local businesses began reporting increased community engagement and support. Other sports organizations started examining their own community outreach efforts. The Morgan model, as it came to be known, was studied by sociologists and community development experts as an example of effective grassroots change. 1 year after that cold morning outside the United Center, Marcus organized a special anniversary event. The United Center was opened for a community celebration that brought together program participants, mentors, business partners, and community members. The evening featured basketball games, job fairs, educational resources, and story-sharing sessions. During the event, Jordan took the microphone to make a surprise announcement. "When I met Marcus that morning, I thought I was just helping one person," he said. But Sarah Morgan's wisdom didn't stop with her grandson. She taught all of us that when we believe in impossible things, we make them possible for others. The announcement was the establishment of the Sarah Morgan Foundation, a multi-million-dollar initiative to expand the program nationwide. But more than the money, it was about preserving and spreading Sarah's philosophy of hope and perseverance. Rachel Martinez stood in the crowd that night, thinking about how a single act of kindness had grown into something so magnificent. She watched as Thomas Woods, now a college freshman and program mentor, helped guide new participants through the resources available to them. Nearby, Michelle Turner was sharing her story with a group of young people, her eyes bright with purpose. Marcus, standing at center court with Jordan, looked out at the gathered community, police officers chatting with teenagers, business owners networking with program participants, families sharing meals and stories. This was more than just a program, it was his grandmother's legacy in action. The evening ended with a new tradition, the midnight moment. The arena lights were dimmed, and everyone was asked to take out their phones, turning on their flashlights. Standing in the darkness, surrounded by these points of light, Marcus shared his grandmother's favorite saying one more time, "Impossible things happen every day." As the lights came up, Jordan put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Your grandmother was right," he said, "but she forgot one thing. Impossible things happen every day because people like her make them happen." Let us know in the comments about someone in your life who taught you to believe in impossible things. Share your story about a mentor, a parent, or a friend who helped you see beyond your circumstances to your true potential. Stay tuned for our next chapter, where we'll explore how the Sarah Morgan Foundation began transforming communities across America, proving that sometimes the most powerful changes start with a single moment of kindness in the cold hours before dawn. As the Sarah Morgan Foundation entered its second year, the ripples of change that had started in Chicago began touching lives in ways that even Michael Jordan hadn't imagined. The story of a grandmother's wisdom and a basketball legend's kindness had evolved into a movement that was redefining how communities support their young people. In Boston, Elizabeth Armstrong, a retired schoolteacher, read about the foundation's work and immediately saw its potential. She had spent 40 years watching talented students slip through the cracks, their dreams deferred by circumstances beyond their control. Within weeks, she had mobilized a network of retired educators to establish the first East Coast chapter of the foundation. The Boston initiative brought its own unique flavor to the program. Drawing on the city's rich academic heritage, they created partnerships with local universities. Students from Harvard, MIT, and Boston College began volunteering as tutors and mentors, creating bridges between communities that had traditionally remained separate. One of these students was James Chin, a computer science major at MIT, who had grown up in a struggling immigrant family. "When I heard about Marcus's story," he said, "I realized that everyone has their own version of sleeping outside the stadium. Everyone has their own impossible dream." James began teaching coding classes at the midnight basketball events, setting up laptops courtside between games. The fusion of sports and technology education proved unexpectedly powerful. Young people who had never considered careers in tech started seeing new possibilities for their futures. Meanwhile, back in Chicago, Marcus Bailey was working with Michael Jordan to expand the original program scope. They had discovered that many participants faced challenges that went beyond education and employment. Housing instability, food insecurity, and healthcare access were common obstacles. Jordan reached out to his vast network of business contacts, but it was Marcus who proposed the innovative solution. "My grandmother always said that everyone has something to give," he explained during a foundation meeting. "We need to create opportunities for people to contribute what they can." This philosophy led to the creation of the Community Exchange Program. Local property owners could offer reduced rent housing to program participants in exchange for community service hours. Restaurants provided meals in return for help during peak hours. Medical professionals offered pro bono services, while participants helped with clinic administration and outreach. The program found an unexpected champion in Dr. Sarah Foster, a prominent pediatrician who had known Sarah Morgan during her final illness. "What Marcus and Michael have created goes beyond charity," she observed. "They're building a sustainable ecosystem of support and opportunity." In Detroit, the program took on another dimension under the leadership of Robert Manning, a former auto worker turned community organizer. Manning saw the potential to connect the foundation's work with the city's manufacturing heritage. Working with local auto companies, he developed an apprenticeship program that combined technical training with the foundation's mentorship model. One of the first participants in Detroit was Angela Thompson, a young single mother who had been living in her sister's basement. Through the apprenticeship program, she not only learned valuable skills but discovered a talent for mechanical engineering. 2 years later, she was leading the program's technical training division while pursuing her engineering degree. The foundation's influence continued to spread, each city adding its own unique elements while maintaining the core principles that Sarah Morgan had instilled in her grandson: belief in impossible things, the importance of perseverance, and the power of community support. In Los Angeles, film industry professionals began offering workshops and internships through the program. In Houston, energy companies created specialized training tracks. In Seattle, tech giants developed coding boot camps. But at every location, basketball remained the heart of the program, serving as the gathering point that made everything else possible. Michael Jordan made it a point to visit each new chapter, not just as a figurehead but as an active participant in their development. During one such visit to Atlanta, he witnessed a moment that brought tears to his eyes. Marcus had flown in to help launch the new chapter, and during the inaugural midnight tournament, he met Jason Williams, a teenager who reminded him powerfully of himself. Jason had been sleeping in his car, attending high school during the day and working nights, trying to support his younger siblings after their mother's illness. As Marcus shared his story with Jason, Jordan watched from the sidelines, remembering that cold morning outside the United Center. The next day, he and Marcus worked together to connect Jason's family with the foundation's resources. Within months, Jason's mother was receiving proper medical care, the family had stable housing, and Jason was on track to become the first in his family to attend college. The foundation's impact began attracting academic attention. Dr. Michelle Kennedy, a sociologist at Northwestern University, conducted a comprehensive study of the program's effects. Her findings were remarkable. Participants showed significantly higher rates of educational completion, employment stability, and community engagement compared to their peers. But the numbers, impressive as they were, couldn't capture the human stories at the heart of the foundation's work. Stories like that of David Patel, a promising young chef who had been on the verge of dropping out of culinary school due to financial pressures. Through the foundation's restaurant partnership program, he not only completed his education but went on to open a successful restaurant that now provides training opportunities for new program participants. Or Patricia Ramirez, a talented artist who had been working as a janitor to support her family. The foundation's arts initiative connected her with a gallery owner, leading to her first exhibition. Today, she teaches art classes at foundation events, showing young people how to express their dreams through creativity. The foundation's storytelling tradition, started by Marcus in Chicago, had become a crucial part of its success. Each chapter maintained a digital archive of participant stories, creating a powerful testament to the program's impact and providing inspiration for others facing similar challenges. Jordan himself contributed to this archive, sharing not just stories of his basketball career but of the personal struggles and losses that had shaped his understanding of perseverance. Success isn't just about talent or hard work, he would say. It's about having people who believe in you, who help you believe in impossible things. As the foundation approached its third year, a special gathering was organized at the United Center, bringing together representatives from all the chapters nationwide. The event began with a moment of silence, as participants held up their phone lights in what had become known as the Morgan moment. Marcus stood at center court, surrounded by thousands of points of light, each representing a life touched by his grandmother's wisdom. "Looking out at all of you," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I see my grandmother's dream come true. She always said that kindness was like a basketball, it needs to keep moving, to be passed from person to person." Jordan joined him on the court, adding his own reflection. "When I met Marcus that morning, I thought I was just helping one person. But Sarah Morgan's spirit has shown us that when we help one person achieve their impossible dream, we create a ripple effect that can transform entire communities." The gathering concluded with the announcement of an ambitious new initiative, the foundation would be expanding internationally, starting with programs in Africa and South America. Because impossible dreams, Marcus explained, don't know borders. Let us know in the comments about a dream that once seemed impossible to you. How did the support of others help make it possible? Share your story and become part of this continuing legacy of hope and transformation. Stay tuned for our final chapter, where we'll explore how the Sarah Morgan Foundation's international expansion is creating new possibilities for young people around the world, proving that some dreams are too big to be contained by national boundaries. 5 years after that cold morning outside the United Center, the impact of Sarah Morgan's wisdom and Michael Jordan's kindness had crossed oceans and continents, touching lives in ways that no one could have predicted. The story of a grandmother's faith in impossible things had become a global testament to the power of hope and human connection. The foundation's first international chapter opened in Nairobi, Kenya, where Marcus Bailey traveled to help establish the program. There he met Grace Kamani, a local teacher who had been organizing informal basketball games for children in her community. Like Sarah Morgan, Grace understood that sports could be more than just a game. They could be a bridge to opportunity. Working together, Marcus and Grace adapted the foundation's model to meet local needs. The midnight basketball tournaments became day-long community gatherings, combining sports with education, job training, and cultural celebration. Local businesses and organizations joined the effort, creating a network of support that mirrored the program's success in American cities. Michael Jordan made a surprise visit to Nairobi for the chapter's official opening. Standing on a newly constructed court, surrounded by hundreds of eager young faces, he shared Marcus's story once again. But this time, the narrative had evolved. It wasn't just about one act of kindness anymore. It was about the unlimited potential of human connection. One of the young participants that day was Samuel Okonjo, a 16-year-old who had been walking 3 hours each way to attend school. His determination reminded Jordan of Marcus sleeping outside the stadium. Within months, the foundation had established a transportation program that helped dozens of students like Samuel reach their schools safely. The Nairobi success sparked interest across Africa. Soon, chapters opened in Lagos, Nigeria, Johannesburg, South Africa, and Cairo, Egypt. Each location brought its own cultural flavor to the program while maintaining the core principles that Sarah Morgan had instilled: belief in impossible things, perseverance through challenges, and the power of community support. In Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, the foundation found an unexpected ally in Isabela Santos, a former Olympic volleyball player who had grown up in the city's favelas. She helped establish the first South American chapter, integrating multiple sports into the program while maintaining basketball as its spiritual center. The Rio chapter introduced innovative elements like beach sports tournaments and cultural exchange programs. Young people from different communities, who might never have met otherwise, found common ground through sports and shared dreams. The program's success in bridging social divides caught the attention of other Latin American cities. Back in Chicago, Marcus worked with Jordan to coordinate these international efforts while ensuring that the foundation's original mission remained strong. They established the Global Dreams Initiative, which facilitated exchanges between chapters worldwide. Young people from Chicago found themselves teaching basketball in Nairobi, while Kenyan students shared their experiences with participants in Rio. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, a Harvard researcher studying the foundation's impact, observed that these international connections were creating something unprecedented. It's not just about providing opportunities anymore, she noted. They're building a global community of dreamers and believers. The foundation's storytelling tradition took on new dimensions through these international exchanges. Stories were shared across continents, translated into multiple languages, creating a tapestry of human experience that transcended cultural boundaries. The Morgan moment of lights in darkness became a global symbol of hope and connection. In Mumbai, India, the foundation partnered with local tech companies to create a digital platform that connected participants worldwide. Young people could share their stories, mentor each other across time zones, and collaborate on projects despite being thousands of miles apart. Jordan himself remained actively involved, often participating in video calls with chapters around the world. During one such call, he connected with Maria Gonzalez, a participant in the Mexico City chapter who had started a coding program for young girls in her community, inspired by the Foundation's work. Your story, Marcus's story, Sarah Morgan's wisdom, they showed me that my dreams weren't just for me, Maria explained. They were meant to be passed on, like a basketball being shared among teammates. The Foundation's 5th anniversary was marked by a global celebration, with events held simultaneously in every chapter worldwide. Through large screens set up in each location, participants could see and interact with their counterparts around the world. The event began, as always, with the Morgan moment, but this time, thousands of lights shone across every time zone. Marcus, speaking from the United Center where it all began, addressed this global community. "My grandmother never traveled far from Chicago," he said, his voice carrying to screens around the world. "But her wisdom, her belief in impossible things, has traveled farther than she could have imagined." Jordan joined him on stage, adding his own reflection. "When I met Marcus that morning, I was reminded of something crucial, that our greatest achievements mean nothing if we don't use them to lift others up." Sarah Morgan understood that. She taught it to her grandson, who taught it to me, and now that lesson is circling the globe. The celebration included the announcement of the Foundation's most ambitious initiative yet, the establishment of the Sarah Morgan Global Academy. This virtual learning platform would provide free education and mentorship to young people worldwide, combining academic instruction with the Foundation's principles of personal development and community engagement. The Academy's first class included students from every continent, each with their own version of an impossible dream. Among them was Lily Chen, a young woman from rural China who dreamed of becoming a doctor, and Mohammed Al-Rahman, a Syrian refugee in Lebanon who aspired to be an engineer. These students, and thousands like them, were the living legacy of Sarah Morgan's wisdom. They represented the ultimate proof of her belief that impossible things happen every day, not by magic, but through the combined power of personal determination and community support. As the global celebration continued, stories poured in from around the world. A young man in South Africa who had started a community garden program. A girl in Brazil who had organized a literacy initiative. A group of teenagers in India who had developed an app to connect local mentors with students in need. Each story was a testament to the truth that Sarah Morgan had understood so well, that kindness, like a basketball, needs to keep moving to create impact. That belief in impossible things, when shared and supported, can transform not just individual lives but entire communities. The evening concluded with a new tradition. Participants around the world were asked to write down their impossible dreams and share them with someone else in their community. These dreams, collected and archived by the Foundation, would become the roadmap for its next phase of growth. Let us know in the comments about your own impossible dream. What would you achieve if you knew you had a global community supporting you? Share your story and become part of this continuing legacy of hope, perseverance, and the power of believing in impossible things. As we look to the future, the Sarah Morgan Foundation continues to grow, touching more lives and crossing new boundaries. But at its heart, it remains true to the wisdom of a grandmother who taught her grandson to believe in impossible things, and the kindness of a basketball legend who proved that sometimes the greatest victories happen far from any court. Stay connected to hear more stories of dreams becoming reality, of communities coming together, and of the endless possibilities that arise when we choose to believe in impossible things.